Good afternoon, cult members, and welcome to the Pop Culture Cult. I'm Sean,
And I'm Josh.
and there's less of a delay this week. And welcome to the Rebel Files, your one-stop shop for everything Star Wars. News, notes, rampant speculation about Palpatine actually resurrection and stuff. It's and so we're gonna get into a lot of the news that we're gonna do this week is gonna be the San Diego Comic-Con stuff, and a lot of the publishing stuff is stuff that we already knew, but we're going to still talk about it because there's a comic book. It's only 4 issues, so I'm okay with that. But so any good Star Wars adventures for you this week?
No, I was actually out of town this weekend. But the cool part about it was ended up, having the atypical camping, powwow with everyone around the fire, and stuff. And everyone,
Right.
well, we talk about Star Wars. It's the way it's going to be till December. It's what's going to happen. All the nerds
Medieval
events are going to
costumes
come out.
and Star Wars.
Yeah, medieval costumes and Star Wars. That's how it boils down to. On the plus side, so much Mandalorian. Because a friend of ours, for those who know that we have a secondary hobby in this medieval organization, a friend of ours was given a really, really cool the peerage this weekend. And she's very much a Boba Fett aficionado and a Boba Fett fan. So all of the stuff that she had coming to her was interlaced with Star Wars. Her medallion.
Medallion had the Mandalorian.
No, it actually didn't. No.
One of the ones I saw.
One of the ones was given. The commissioned one that I actually commissioned for her actually has the Sith son because she's still in service to the Empire.
That's true. I did.
So, but it was a lot of fun. The cross nerd culture was rampant, and it was a hoot and a holler. It was awesome.
For me, it was. I took Friday off to do CouchCon, and we want to welcome everybody who's new to the channel, by the way. But it was 4 days of like every few minutes posting something, reading something, seeing something, because there was multiple panels going on at multiple times, and then I'm trying to watch other coverage, and then oh, by the way, this giant EDM music festival is going on in Belgium called Tomorrowland. So I'm trying to watch Tomorrowland and listen to the music while everything else is going on. And then we're doing trailer reactions. It was a lot of fun, but not too much specifically on Star Wars. However, right now, while we're recording this, on the big screen behind the camera here is Force Awakens, because TNT's playing it. So let's get into this week's news, notes, and wild speculation. Let's start off with Thrawn Treason dropped today, and it is available in hardback and in audio form. I will be reading it on the 27th when my Audible credit kicks in.
I was going to wait for those.
Yeah. You were saying earlier that you hadn't gotten into the Thrawn series yet, have you?
No, not completely. I read the first one, but nothing after that. Because I had to go backtrack and actually read some of the other stuff in order to pick up some gaps that I've been missing.
Right.
Because I'm not in working from home. I'm not in my vehicle much, so I don't, and I can't really sit here and listen to audiobooks while I'm working. So it's always one of those downsides where, the last time I got a chance to actually listen to an audiobook, it was like 16 hours. And it was during my trip back and forth to Cali. So, great on long distance trips, kids.
Oh, yeah.
On a long distance drive, Audible is awesome. But yeah, so I'm not all caught up. So
I drive most of the day for work or walk most of the day for work. So I've got my headphones in almost all the time. So I was doing the first Witcher book, and it's just not getting me. So I'm sitting here patiently for Thrawn. We will get into a lot of the San Diego Comic-Con news. We will not cover all of it because unlike, it's a lot of stuff, and there's a lot of stuff that was kind of rehashed from Celebration or new details, and a lot of that was the publishing stuff, all the stuff that's going into the Road to Rise of Skywalker was all stuff that we already knew. Some finer point details. At this point in time, I really don't care. Just give me the books from Del Rey and the comics. We'll talk about one specific comic that's going to be really big. But the listened to Force Center this morning. I've been talking with Robert and Vanessa from Late to the Party, who were on site the whole time. They were all very impressed with the Star Wars display that they had with all of the troopers, the stormtroopers and the Sith trooper and the Death trooper and the biker scout and all of them and stuff like that. And they were showing like little segments from the movies and behind the scenes stuff and trailers, including the trailer from Empire Strikes Back that was voiced over by Harrison Ford. And that's one of the things that happens at con. You can't, like, I want to see it. I want to be there. I want to be part of that. But
it's like being opening night at a movie. You know it's going to be chaotic. You know it's going to be cluttered, but there's something about that energy that's just there.
And I seen a bunch of photos and a bunch of videos. The Sith Trooper, everybody was saying is cool as it looks, and
I'm really intrigued by it. I got a chance to watch some of the videos, oddly enough, remotely from a campsite, like you do. So I was actually keeping up on some of the stuff they had coming out, and I actually got to watch the video of the panel when they were debuting. They were doing the whole history of the stormtroopers. Kudos to whoever filmed that. Thank you. It was actually a really good view of it. So I was kind of tickled like it. I thought they were going to, have a little bit more input on the Sith Trooper, but they're keeping everything so under wraps. I wasn't shocked at the amount that they released on, but it was a really, really cool montage. It's kind of the evolution of it. In fact, it was so cool. I would love to see, like they do the visual guides for the movies. I'd love to see some of those vignettes like that come out where they talk about the evolutions of things like TIE fighters, lightsabers, or trooper armor, or
right.
It was actually really cool to see that.
They actually have the visual guide was one of the things in the Del Rey panel this weekend, and it's actually in our notes, so I can talk about it now. But they were saying in that visual guide that there is a section in there about the Sith Trooper, except there's no information, and so that's really good. You have to come back later and write in pencil all the information we get from the movie, which, let's be honest, won't really be anything. But yeah, that's the one thing I really, that the Doctor Who booth and the Funko booth were the three that I really wish I could have gone and been a part of and seen and bought stuff from and everything. So let's talk about some of the toys that Hasbro decided to drop on it. They do this every year with a bunch of different things. This year they had a whole panel with a bunch of different things, and we just picked some of the, I don't know, interesting ones, I guess. The first one is Star Wars Galaxies of Adventure, the YouTube show that they've been doing. They're doing 3 3/4 inch classic sculpt characters. So they're gonna look like the old Kenner toys and kind of have that Kenner old kind of style, but they're gonna be more stylized like they are on the show. And I saw a handful of photos. I don't know if I necessarily need them, but if I found them at a discounted rate.
So here's the cool thing with those. So like I said, they've been doing the Galaxy Adventures, and I mean, the funny part is the line's apparently doing really, really well. And every time I've seen them on the shelf, they've always been. So I very much like the black figures, like a little bit of the larger format, but I still like the 3 3/4. Now they're cool because I almost treat them as an afterthought. I'm not going to lie; the shelf bulk outs are always kind of disheveled and everything, but they're still a cool looking figure because you're right; they do kind of go into that classic Star Wars mold, not necessarily being the original styles, but a modern, updated version of the old, Kenner 5 points of articulation figures. And it's interesting that they're taking this switch because if you've got a successful product line at 3 3/4, I know they're going to try and do a couple more in that line, and now they're doing this 5-inch line.
And the 5-inch line, yeah.
So I look at the pictures, and the thing that struck me as being really, really funny about the style of those figures is they're very, very close to another line of figures I actually plan on collecting if I find room. And that is the ones that are actually available at the Disney Store. Now, the Disney Store ones are actually rendered slightly similar to the Galaxy of Adventures animation style, but they're based off a little more of like the Disney Infinity line. And I always loved those character renditions. And those, I think, are about 5 inches, 5 to 6 inches. About 5 to 6 inch talls, super articulated.
Yeah.
So it's like they're close, but they're not quite that design. They're like this weird mishmash of the two. I don't know if I dig them. I mean, the Han Solo one looked really, really cool. The Stormtrooper looked cool. I'm not sure how I feel about the Chewbacca and the C-3PO.
Yeah, the Chewbacca one was the one I was like, I don't know.
It was C-3PO was like looking back at droids from the 80s.
Now, see, the thing about the 5-inch ones that are coming is that they're going to be spring-loaded. So there's going to be Han's going to be able to pull this blaster out, and Chewbacca's gonna be smashing with his fist, and then C-3PO is just gonna fall to pieces. But that kind of stuff is kind of cool. But for us as collectors, I don't know if that's really. Now, if I had a massive room full of Star Wars stuff, I'm obviously gonna have to get these to complete the collection. But for what these are, like toys for kids, they're cool for kids, but it's just not enough for me.
Yeah, they're 4 and up. They've got action features. And I think at our age, we've kind of overgrown some of the spring loaded, unless the lightsaber is actually popping out of the hilt. But they're driven for kids. They're a 4 and up age bracket. They look cool. They're a little bigger format, so the kids can beat on them a little bit more. My only curiosity for this is the one thing that Hasbro seems to be suffering from a little bit lately, and that is the lack of play sets and lack of vehicles. So now you got a 3 and 3/4 line you're not making any vehicles for, or barely any currently, and then you've got now a 5-inch line which doesn't quite fit the Star Wars Black size. It doesn't quite fit the 3 3/4. So you got to create an entire vehicle line. And I don't think they're aiming that at the kids.
The Black Series, it does have some of the vehicles, but they get quite big, and they kind of get, and they're much more for collectors like us.
Correct. You have to have the space for it.
Yeah. They are also going to do a line of modern characters and retro styling, kind of like the old Kenner ones. I just let the Kenner ones be the Kenner ones, and I really didn't like the repop ones that they did here, what, a year and a half ago or whatever. And I don't like them.
They changed the size again.
Yeah, and I want those Kenner ones to be sacred. And if you're going to flood the market with these remakes of these ones, it just dirties the field, and I just don't want that. I just don't want that at all.
It does. And I mean, to your point, there's this giant subsection of the toy community who, like, when the Black figures first came out, we started getting these 15 to 20 points of articulation where they felt almost a little flimsy. There's still this whole group that likes 5 points. They just want arms that are straight. I love them for that, but I hate them at the same time because they don't bend and move. But I agree with you. Let the Kenner be Kenner. It was one of the things that everything was in sequence. Everything worked with its own play sets. Let it be that. Let it be the history of the line. Let's move on and make something better and more.
Yeah.
And I agree with it, right?
Black Series is doing a 40th anniversary one, and it's going to be, is this the helmet? Hold on, my notes are all kind of discombobulated. They're doing a Boba Fett paint scheme for Black Series, and then they're doing the Dagobah. Luke was the one that won the fan vote, so they're going to do a Dagobah in the fatigues, which is kind of cool. I don't know, again, if this is necessarily this is something I'm not a big Black Series collector. I've got a few that I really, really like. But I'm not one of those collectors that needs to collect the entire series. I collect ones that I like. And I'd rather have the Sith Trooper Funko Pop because it's really cool and oddly shaped and that kind of thing, more than, the 17th version of Luke. If it was a proper size Black Series Ahsoka or Dr. Aphra or something like that, I still got to find General Grievous. So it's like that, those ones have my attention.
Yeah, and I think, in terms of those, I think it's one of those things where you have to kind of look at it as though, the point, we're not collectors anymore. I mean, I used to, back in the day, I used to collect every single one of a series, and it would end up becoming an insurance claim. So, at the end of the day, it did, and at the end of the day, it just got to the point where it was just too much. So I'm in the same boat now. I want to collect certain ones that I like. I want to collect those figures. So it's cool. It's good that they're making them because everybody's drawn to a different one. Luke and Dagobah Fatigues was not the one I expected to win that vote. Out of all of them, he's probably one of the most boring renditions of Luke ever. Now, that being stated, they are bringing out the Luke and Dagobah Fatigues, which they announced at Comic-Con, in the Hyperreal. And the Hyperreal figure, so they've over the course of earlier this year, they announced the Darth, and they're bringing out the Luke and Dagobah. Now, the Hyperreal figures, from my end, are actually the ones I'm kind of curious about because, let's face it, we do a lot. We're not dumping $300 a pop on Hot Toys.
I want to.
I'd love to too. I mean, there's a couple of the Iron Man ones. God knows I want my grips on, but they still produced. They're basically making a slightly smaller version of the Hot Toys that is cheaper, fits in a better cost bracket, which emulates the same type of internal framework that the Hot Toys wants. And honestly, they're $70 a pop, but dude, $70 is way better than $300 for Hot Toys.
Right.
Still interchangeable hands. And I'm like, okay, cool. Now you've got a Luke on the docket with the Vader, so you can have that kind of iconic Empire Strikes Back scenario.
Right.
Cool. That's the one I'm stoked for.
That's cool. The Hot Toy. I actually sent you the video of Anakin in the Jedi ship or whatever. Oh, are you kidding me? Oh my God, that thing is amazing.
You need like a house to collect Hot Toys. You need like a collector's house just to collect Hot Toys.
Oh, I told Janice that if we ever win the lottery, I'm going to have a room just for my Funkos. I'm going to have a room just for my Hot Toys because I want all of them. The John Wick one, like, blows my freaking. He's got the dog and just and then I saw pictures of War Machine from Endgame last night. And and he comes like in the stance with all the stuff, and then you can get Rocket, and Rocket attaches to War Machine like he does. It's like, are you kidding me? That's $1,000 right there.
Not cash, kids.
The only other thing that came out that I'm really actually interested in is they are doing a full-size wearable Boba Fett helmet to go along with their other Black Series, the Luke Skywalker X-Wing helmet, the Poe helmet that I really think is cool, the orange and black one. But they're going to do a full-size, actually with all the dents in it, the way it's supposed to be. That one, that's a space issue when you start getting into all those helmets and stuff. And let's get into the next story, which is George Lucas got a check for $4 billion from Disney, and he's decided that he's an old rich white guy now, and he wants to open a museum. And they've been working on this museum for several years. He's gone to several different cities to get it done. I know at least one of them was San Francisco because he wanted to do it on the bay overlooking the Golden Gate Bridge. And it was passed, and it was going to happen, and then people started complaining, and the city council backed off. So he went on a world tour. I think Chicago was in there for a little while, and Miami, but he ended up in Los Angeles. They're building it right now, and they had a panel this weekend in San Diego talking about what this Lucas Museum is going to be, and it's called the Lucas Museum of Narrative Art. And essentially, what it's going to be is different styles of art that are examples of narrative storytelling. Mm-hmm. So they'll do everything from paintings and sculptures to movie props and comics. And I'm just going to say that this is another thing that I need to put on my list to do when we go to Los Angeles once it gets built. Scum and Villainy Cantina, Galaxy's Edge, Peterson Museum, the Gutenberg.
It's going to be busy. We're not even going to be at the Airbnb very long. It's going to be like 5 hours between everything else we're visiting.
Well, maybe. I don't know. We might stay in a couple extra days. But do you, is this like, I know museums aren't super big thing here in the States, but I mean, this one kind of makes a little bit of sense, at least for us.
Well, it kind of depends. I mean, obviously, I grew up going to museums, so I'm a history buff. It's not like right. West Coast, you only have the ones in the Bay Area, and you got a couple of locals from the Gold Rush and all that growing up. But they didn't get as heavily involved. Now, the cool part about this is there's a lot of people still out there who think that George is very, very much, he's just the godfather of Star Wars. Okay, look, yes, he's responsible for it. But at the end of the day, it was one aspect of what he was into. I mean, he did Flyboys, American Graffiti, THX, and everything. But if you look at the common themes in every interview that he's always talked about, everything
Jones,
yeah, exactly. The big things that he's been into, and the reason Star Wars ended up becoming such a great story that everyone grew onto is because he was always big into the narrative of the story, the hero's quest journey. And he'll talk at length in some interviews about this. And he's very, very passionate about the art form of storytelling. So for him to kind of take a little bit of what he had at Skywalker Ranch in the archive, merge it with other things that he's been wanting to do to take a look at the art of storytelling and art as a function of that as well is fantastic. I mean, let's face it, these days we're plagued by remakes upon remakes upon remakes, and everybody gets really hyped when a new original idea comes out. Why? Because a story is a very valuable thing. So I think this is a really cool thing that he's doing, and God knows he's got the cash to do it right now.
Right.
So,
right. And I like the idea too that it's not just a Lucas base. Yes, there'll be lightsabers. The second Death Star model will be there. We'll get stuff from Indiana Jones and Willow and maybe some of his cars and that kind of stuff. But it's not necessarily just about that. Ralph McQuarrie's concept drawings will be there. There'll be paintings from world artists, and the other thing too that I thought was interesting is that they actually talked about it a couple different times in a couple different articles, is that comic and comic book art will be part of this, and I think that's really cool that they'll be able to. I appreciate that the comic book art is now starting to become a thing that people are really looking into and saying, there's a really good artist here that they're doing stuff, and Kirby and Lee and all of them in the early days were doing really great stuff, but I don't think it's been understood until recently with the rush of comic book movies and TV shows and stuff like that. People are now going back and reading those comics like me and saying, hey, there's actually really good art here. And oh, by the way, they're telling a story with it. So I love that concept.
Well, comics in a shape or form, and it's always kind of funny that a lot of people find this out later. But, that people have been movie addicts for a long time. But really, when you look at comic books, they're long form storyboards.
Right.
They're meant to tell the story through imagery. And it was always surprising where you have, movie buffs and everything who'll be like, oh, we got an original storyboard. Ew, comics.
Yeah. How does that work? They're just colorized.
Right. I don't get it.
All right, let's get into the last little one. And this is probably the big story that came out from San Diego this weekend. We are getting a 4-part series called Marvel's The Rise of Kylo Ren. And it is going to be the story of Kylo Ren and the Knights of Ren. And it's only going to be 4 issues. I wonder if they're going to be like supersized issues, like bigger issues. But the big thing is Charles Soule who's actually going to do this. And Charles Soule is the one that just finished the Darth Vader line. Mm-hmm. So that super awesome 25-issue Darth Vader line that everybody's been ranting and raving about all over the internet, with all this great tidbits of Vader knowledge and how he became Vader.
Reading, kids. Important reading.
Important reading.
It is important reading.
He's the one who's doing this series. Mm-hmm. And I'm super excited about this one.
And so is he.
Yes.
And he's like super stoked that he gets to write this.
He was I saw a couple different quotes. The one that I took was, I can't believe I'm doing it. It's astonishing. So and they opened the panel with this. They didn't like save it to the end or whatever. They opened with the panel with this. Like, here, we're doing this really cool thing. It's another thing that you need to go buy for Star Wars to help with the storytelling and the narrative, whatever. But I kind of like I'm reading the comics, I'm reading the books. So when I go to the movies, I get little details mean a lot more to me, and the regular movie fan can just go and still have fun in those movies. So
it's 4 issues.
Right.
It's exactly. 4 issues. That's, man, it's not a big issue. It's a very short series run. Vader was a little long, but still an important, Vader was a book in comic form. Yeah. Instead of just writing another book, they did it in a comic form. This one, 4 issues, guys. And this is going to give you those little tidbits of information about the Knights of Ren that you didn't get to pick up because of the way movies were done. So they have to squash a lot into episode 9.
Yeah.
So this is going to be important for a lot of us.
And I think a lot of these books and comics and stuff that are coming, and they're calling it The Road to the Rise of Skywalker, is because they only have 3 hours and one last movie to wrap up 9 movies and 40 plus years of storytelling of this one continuous story, and to be able to fill out some of the minutia details of the movie itself. You need to do them in these different, there's going to be characters who are going to be talked about in depth in the books that are going to have an important part in the final movie, but aren't going to be on screen very long, so you can't go into their backstory, and so that's why they're doing it this way. But them talking about the Knights of Ren and telling the story of them, I find very interesting. Since I was watching The Force Awakens before we started to record tonight, Snoke tells Kylo, "You're the last of the Knights of Ren," and I'm like, I swear that's what he says. That you're the last of the Knights of Ren. Not the leader of the Knights of Ren, not the commander of the Knights of Ren. I swear he said the last of the Knights of Ren. So I'm wondering if this is the story of him taking out the Knights, because the trailer where he's running through the forest, everybody is saying that's when he's taking out the Knights of Ren. So I'm
which
like,
could potentially be the flashback. Because they're talking about they're doing a lot of flashbacks. Yep. And I mean, it's like you said, it's a lot to cry. I mean, because not only do they have the 40 years of story, the story being out there, they're also dealing with a retcon. They're dealing with a higher canonical change. So you have 40 plus years of all this little stuff that they've been, kind of, piecemealing from and bringing it into the current canon. You got to wrap that up. But yeah, I'm right with you on that. I really started thinking about, in retrospect with the way Snoke is aligned and everything else, and Palpatine talking to Kylo through a helmet or something, however you want to view that. But there's still, there's flashbacks, and I think they're misleading. I think, yes, they've suited up the Knights of Ren in this movie. Yes, we've seen pictures of the Knights of Ren. Yes, we know that the Knights of Ren, Kylo Ren, Knights of Ren, they're kind of like the new Darths, so it'll be interesting to see what their names are.
Right.
But to that point, yeah, I'm pretty sure this is going to be a flashback at some point, because you haven't seen him in the last movie, so what better to explain? Well, he just waxed them out.
Right. He waxed them out even before Force Awakens.
They were done.
Yeah.
Somewhere in that 30 years is when it happens.
It was a monkey in the middle, and he was the last one standing.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Get it out of the way, kids, and get that answered before you get to the meat and potatoes episode 9.
Right. So we can move forward and go back and do Old Republic. The only other book we talked about, the visual guide, which I really love the visual guides. I want to get some. The one I really want to get is the solo one. Apparently, it's got a ton of tidbits in it. This one I'm really interested in. For the Rise of Skywalker, it's got 200 pages plus, and it's Pablo Hidalgo who writes these, and so I'm really interested in it. But the only other one that really kind of got my attention is they're doing Return to Vader's Castle comic again, and they are spooky stories. So they're horror stories told from a third-person perspective of things within the Star Wars universe, and they're doing stories around Darth Maul, Asajj Ventress, Jabba the Hutt, Darth Vader, and Grand Moff Tarkin. So I love these. They did it with the they're doing it with Vader Dark Visions right now, the comic, and they've been really good. A little weird. Okay, a lot weird, but but a little weird. But they did it with some from a certain point of view. They did it with the stories of Luke Skywalker, where they're telling narrative stories that people around the campfire will be telling. So they're not necessarily correct or necessarily canon, but they are a perspective of people within the universe, and I think that's really cool storytelling.
Well, it is, and I mean, especially if you take into consideration, because one of the big things the fandom's really been kind of crying out about in a lot of ways is we're not getting into other options in the universe. We're not talking about like the underworlds of Coruscant. We're not talking about all those. It's been Skywalker driven a lot of the way. So this is a really cool segue into some of the stuff that they want to do, because if you look at those characters, you look at like Ventress and you look at Tarkin and you look at Vader. Dude, they were the spooky people of that era. Like, these were the ones, you whispered to your kid when you wanted them to do good in school or sleep at night, So it kind of does make sense for them to actually take this angle. This is how the universe and, the galaxy actually viewed them, and why they were so evil in many ways. So I do think it's a cool take on it.
I love the Vader stuff too, because for the most part, most people never saw Vader. Right? They only heard stories of Vader. They never saw Vader. And for the most part, we as movie viewers never saw full horror Vader until we saw Rogue One. And we'd always seen him fight in lightsaber fights, and his fight with Obi-Wan is two old men at that point in time. His fight with Luke is very much a messing with your food kind of thing. If you really watch that fight, Vader's playing with his food until he gets hit in the shoulder, and then he's like, "Oh no, I'm turning it on."
Yep, that's exactly it. Rogue One comes out, and we were all like, this was what we saw in Episode 3. This was Anakin going full tilt. Screw you. We saw it in Rebels. We've seen it in Clone Wars. We saw that anger of the Sith come out. Yeah. And then when we got to that point in Rogue One, we were all like, because we knew it was coming. Yeah, this is it. I mean, we knew he was capable of it. We just never saw it in that time sequence of the series. So which is kind of funny because of where Rogue One takes place. Then they give you this fight scene. And you're like, what happened in A New Hope? He was slow. Was it out of reference?
He was tired.
He might have been tired. That Tantive's a long ship.
It's like 3 or 4 football fields, right? It's not as big as the destroyer, but
yeah. They got little carts that run around.
Yeah, he's in that the little carts they have at the airports for the handicapped people or the old people. Yeah. They have a little cart, and he's kind of just sitting there like.
That's what those mouse droids did. I get it now.
I guess. So that is our show this week. That's all the news from San Diego. Like I said, we weren't going to cover all of it because some of it's just, like little minor details and stuff like that. We wanted to get some of the big stuff in, and we're going to get ready more and more for the Rise of Skywalker. So that we'll be getting more and more information. They are announcing stuff right now for D23. They talked about a bunch of Marvel stuff that's coming. Marvel has its own pavilion, so I'm assuming there'll be a Star Wars Lucasfilm pavilion. I think I've actually even seen that they were talking about a Lucasfilm pavilion, so we'll probably get some more stuff there, maybe another trailer, but we will definitely get stuff for Mandalorian, and probably like at least a panel where we talk about we're doing Cassian, and this is what it's going to be about. And here's Diego Luna, and here's who's directing them, and here's some of the cast. And so I think that will. And here's Alan Tudyk because we know he's going to be in it. So I think we'll probably get more news with D23, which is in late August. So, so that is our. We get to that, then we get to Triple Force Friday. And then we get Jedi Fallen Order, and then we get to...
We're just literally going to go straight from Jedi Fallen Order to Rise of Skywalker, because we're going to be locked up playing the game until then.
Okay, we're going to be playing the game on one screen and watching the 4th time through of The Mandalorian on another screen.
You got a point. All the monitors.
On the monitors. So what did you guys think of this week's episode? What do you think about all the new Star Wars news that we're getting? Is there something specific that just that scene? Sorry, I still have Force Awakens on in the back, and we're at the Han and Kylo on the bridge scene. Okay.
Solitary tear for a solitary man.
I still love the theory that he's actually alive. So let us know in the comments. I'm just going to start over. What do you guys think of this episode of the Rebel Files? Let us know in the comments. Tell us what books you're reading to get ready for The Rise of Skywalker and what comics you're interested into. And tell us which of the toys you saw this weekend that you want to buy. Not a hot toy, because we all know we want to buy those. Right. And so please like this video, subscribe to the channel, help us out on Patreon. We got a Patreon goal going there. And we're on social media, Facebook, Instagram, all that's in the description below. And until next time, look, I remember this time, I'm one with the Force.
And the Force is with us. Take care.